Hello, good evening. Please let me know if you can hear my voice and that you can hear that. We'll just kick off with that. Just give us a minute or two just to warm up, get ourselves together, see if anybody's here. Anybody coming along to chat about things this evening? But please let me know in the comments if there's anybody there about whether you can hear the mic and whether you can hear the music. Sound is okay? Sound is okay? Testing, testing. I know, Andrew, you're here, mate. That's a cause for celebration, that is. Wow. We'll have to be extra sparky this evening in that case, just so that you get the full effect of an entire live stream. Synth's a bit louder than me, yeah. I won't keep the synth on. Hey Steph, good to see you. Is it the same crew as Tuesday? Oh, what's going on? We're doing this far too often. This is going to lose its novelty if we're not careful. Good. Well. Okay. I mustn't forget to do this just in case we have new people here. Hello, my name's Robin Vincent and welcome to the Molten Music Technology live stream. I like to do this usually once a month, but unusually because of the NAMM show and the epicness of the NAMM show that is still actually happening over in Anaheim, California, that I thought it would be prudent just to get together and have another chat. I mean, the chat I had earlier in the week with everybody was just because I was fiddling about in the studio. So this time around we have a purpose. We want to talk about what it is, what it was, what we have seen and heard about, and at the NAMM show. So that's the purpose of the evening, is to chat about the products that we saw at the NAMM show. There's some obvious stuff to talk about, but also throw in your ideas of things that you thought were extraordinary or interesting or different, and we'll chat about those as well. So what I think we should do is I'm going to pour myself a beer and put the music on for another minute just to let everybody warm up and introduce themselves, and then we'll crack on. By the way, it's working out. Those of you who are with me on Tuesday, it's definitely working out. I don't have it all powered yet. I've only got this extra row here. So I haven't got enough power supplies for all this yet. I need to build them. I have kits in order to build the power supplies, and I hope to do that tomorrow. Well, at least one of them tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be a soldering day, because I haven't done that for a while. So I want to build a kit and I want to do a bit of Deckard's Dream. That's tomorrow, because I've been so flipping flat out busy with covering this NAMM show that I need to do something else just for a day and sit down and solder. What have I got today? Dead Pony. And I think that'll do me a world of good, just to not look at anything except for the tiny things in front of me. That'll do me some good. Also to say that I will be making my Molten Music Monthly this week as well, which of course will be all about NAMM. So I will pick out my favourite products, favourite dozen products I suppose, stick those into my proper speaking to camera type, this is gear type video. Whereas this is a bit more of a off the cuff, likely to offend people and to say things we don't really mean in the heat of the discussion kind of thing, which is exciting. Right, let's say hello to a few people. Jim, hi, good to see you. David, thanks for joining us. Steph already said hello to you. Cisco, good to see you, Drizzle. One of my guinea pigs is called Drizzle. It's a great name. Yes, hello. Yeah, well, I've turned the music off now, so that shouldn't be a problem. Hi, Inky. Hey, good to see you again. Yeah, the whole crowd still here. Whereabouts in England am I? I'm in Norfolk. Norfolk, north of Norwich, about 15 minutes north of Norwich, out in the sticks, where there's no mobile phone reception, so that's nice. And yeah, not actually in Norwich, I'm north of Norwich. I go to Norwich when I feel the need of some urbanness. So, how should we do this? Obviously there are things to talk about, but let's start, perhaps. I'm going to sort of roughly do it in the order that I wrote about it. So I'm sort of kicking off from about a week ago, when the first thing I think we had through that of any real significance, but obviously there's tons of stuff, we can't talk about everything. But let's kick off with the Korg, the Arp 2600, shall we? Now, I'm going to try out a thing, right? You have to bear with me, this is not going to be seamless. I'm not Nick Batt as yet. But I have all sorts of magic and stuff going on here that I'm going to try to make happen, right? So bear with me. If I do a bit of that, right, and if I do that, then something magic might happen. It might not, and of course I'm going to have to wait 2 minutes to see whether it worked or not. Probably. I've got to do something about the latency with this YouTube thing, and I must be doing either something wrong or there must be something that I can do to improve it, because it just takes an age for me doing stuff. But also, essentially what it is that I need to ignore the live preview. I need to move to a preview of my own. That's what I need to do, to see, and then forget about what you see and just see what I see in the moment, because that's ultimately it comes to you in a steady stream of stuff, so it doesn't matter. Me pausing makes no difference. If I know what I mean, but I haven't quite got that yet. So see, because I want to move that, I'm gonna have to look over there. Is that better? Yeah. Oh no, it doesn't really matter. About there. So let's talk about the Korg Arp then, the Arp 2600. Wow, did we see that coming? No, I don't know that we did. So Korg, of course, worked with Arp before on the Arp Odyssey. They produced, a few years ago, an Odyssey with MIDI keys that everyone was really annoyed about. And then they produced the FS, the full-size Odyssey with proper keys. And they worked with the guy behind Arp, one of the original co-founders, and they worked on the authentic reproduction of the Arp Odyssey. And we thought that was marvellous. Marvellous. And then, of course, Behringer came along and did it for half the price. Shucks, thought Korg. Right. So they went back to their guy from Arp and thought, well, maybe we can do something else. So they've come up with the 2600, the Arp 2600. Now, the Arp 2600 is generally regarded as one of the finest synthesizers ever made. It's kind of in that space between moving from modular into keyboard-based. It sort of brings modular with it, but with a load of stuff that's set and done into a single panel unit. So you're not having to worry about modules. You've just got an entirely planned and designed synthesizer sat there in front of you in this massive flight case. And it's great. Comes with patch cables and stuff. So what is it that I want to talk about that? I don't know, really. I mean, maybe we should just get on to the more interesting stuff, because this is fascinating. And what's fascinating about it is that it's very expensive, it's very exclusive. There are limited numbers. I believe there's going to be like 400 in the States, 400 in Europe, and that's your lot. People have been putting their money down. I've heard people say that they're sold out already, which is extraordinary. Now, one thing that was interesting, very, very interesting, is that when we were thinking about this and looking at this, Guitar Center published their page on it for taking pre-orders, and they had these weird photos. Now, do I have those that I could bring up? Maybe I do. Let me see. Now, I might not have thought this through in the finding of things now, have I? But if I do something like that, because you can probably see all this on screen, doesn't matter. Do boo 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 bo bo bo. Here we go. So we had this thing here, right? Yeah. So Guitar Center had these images, the ones that are on your which I've no idea. The smaller one, right? The smaller one. So Korg had just announced the Arp 2600, and then Guitar Center published their pre-order page for the right amount of money, $3,500 or whatever it was, with these weird other pictures. And looking at those going, that's weird. That's not the same. Those aren't the same. Oh my goodness, this is a smaller one. These are images of a mini Arp 2600. Got very excited at that point. Not because I wanted a mini version, but because it would probably be cheaper and perhaps in greater numbers. And so we dwelled on these images and thought about them a good lot. There was a number of them as well from different angles, and it was definitely a different machine, a scaled down version. And stuck them up there as on the internet to see what people thought, and people just sort of stroked their chins and weren't really sure what to think. Well, the information I have from Korg now, through a guy I know, a guy who once met a guy who was at lunch with a guy who spoke to the guy at Korg, apparently it's not anything at all. It was something that they toyed with at one point. They created some renders, which are the images that we see. They had to think about it, and they thought, oh, yeah, we could do this. And then they thought, no, sod it, we're going to make the big version, the full-size version, and just do that. And you think, oh, all right, maybe. But why does Guitar Center have these images? You know, if you're doing some internal development, why does Guitar Center have these images? And why did they put them up? It's just weird. So I don't wholly buy that story that it was just an idea that somebody did in renders, and there's no such thing as an ARP 2600 Mini. I don't know. I mean, I guess you can see what Korg are thinking. They're thinking that, because it's a different landscape now. Yeah, last year, was it the Minilog XD they released? The year before that, it was the Prophecy. Prologue, rather, not the Prophecy. Prophecy's way back. They relaunched the Prologue, and there was a Minilog and a Monologue, that kind of thing. So Korg have had it easy. They've had the Volkers in there. They've been cruising along doing this thing. And then, but in the last year or two, Behringer has really just come in and caught up and has undercut them and disturbed them and disrupted very much Korg's road, their line, their market, their place, you know. And this is very interesting. So you've got to think that Korg are having to think differently, having to think more creatively, having to push in different ways, not because Behringer's beating them on everything, but just because there is this competition now, and they have to be more edgy, be more competitive. Maybe not in price. Maybe that's not the way. Maybe Korg in some ways kind of they're not Moog. They're not that boutique, but also they're not sort of bottom end box shifters either. You know, they're somewhere in the middle. And so where do they place themselves? How do they retain their part of the market? And maybe by producing something this elegant as the ARP 2600 kind of keeps that alive. Because there's plenty of market out there for people who want authentic reproductions of old stuff. And there's a lot of people who would prefer to pay a company that they trust more, if I'm allowed to say that. So I think Korg have definitely got a place for this, and they've pitched it just right. They're going to sell out, no problem. What's going to be interesting is what they do next. Will they continue down this line of very exclusive limited numbers of something which has the perception of being very authentic? Or are they going to try to do something for the rest of us? But then, of course, they have other synths and other stuff coming out as well. It's just interesting. So is the whole thing with Korg Germany, and that's setting up to do interesting projects. So, I mean, I like what Korg are doing. I like the fact that they are not sitting there going, oh, right, yeah, Behringer, yeah, whatever. They're going, oh, right, let's be interesting. Let's be different. Let's develop. Let's do some R&D. Let's support and encourage and create something awesome, you know, as we do. Continue to do that and make sure we do that. And I think that's great. I got a lot of time for Korg and what they're attempting to do. Will it work? I don't know. I don't know. What do you lot think? So give me your thoughts on the ARP 2600 down there. I'll have a sip of this and I'll have a look in a minute. Inky already reckons they're sold out. MS-20, yeah, sure. Is it a proper video, the Behringer one? Is it a proper video? Or is it just another tease? Is it the real thing? Where's me? Ba ba ba. Dooby dooby doo. Juan from Barcelona. Hello. No, the latest one from Behringer is still the... No, it's not. Yes, it... Oh, no. Hang on. Just the teaser. Yeah, that's what I thought. See, there's every possibility that they'll release another teaser today. Because why not? I mean, they're running by their own rules. But no, as far as I can see, at the moment, we still just have the 2600 one with Rob Keeble from AMS Synths. Yes, interesting. We'll come to Behringer in a minute. Let's just continue with our Korg vibe. So has anybody out there bought a 2600, the ARP 2600? The Carp 2600, as I think we're calling it now. Yeah, I'd quite like a mini one. Andrew, you got a lot of Korg, yeah? I've got a micro Korg, yeah, micro Korg over there, which is all right. It's an all right as a thing. It's useful as a controller. I've used it in gigs because it has some sounds inside. It's sometimes be fun to play with. I don't tend to play with it much. I would very, very much like Prologue. Very much. Of all the synths I played at Thomann Synth Reactor last March, I think it was, other than the Moog 1, which was in a whole category by itself, I preferred the Prologue. I preferred it over the Peak, over the System 8. What else was there? Well, we had things like the Sculpt and the Microfreak, but in its league of polysynths, that was the one that really, really appealed to me. It just sounded good, and everything I moved on it sounded great. And that's kind of what I want in a polysynth, really. But we have a lot more synths to talk about now. Yeah, hi everyone who's just tuning in. Yeah, cool. So we're just talking about the ARP 2600 from Korg. So so I mean, you know, it is what it is. Ultimately, it's an authentic reproduction of an old-fashioned synthesizer, which sounds great. I found this wonderful video of Ozzy Osbourne playing with his ARP 2600 from it was from a good number of years ago, but going, oh, I don't know what the fuck this does. You know, it was just fantastic. It was amazing, but it was getting sounds out of it. So yeah, go and check that out. That's very funny. What would I do with an ARP 2600? I'm not entirely sure. I don't really have the space for it, and it is ultimately a mono synth, but it's kind of like this, isn't it? Like this is a mono synth to some degree. I think it would be an interesting. I think it's a furniture piece. You know, it's the sort of thing you could have sitting around that would just look lovely and you could spend time with. And I've got a lot of time for that. That's fine. It doesn't have to be a hard working. This must fit in my studio and my sound sort of synth. It can just be something that you enjoy playing with. Yeah. Yes, indeed. Okay, just turning that off for a moment. So, so that's that. So should we talk about other Korg stuff? All right, so the wave state. See if I can pick a picture of that. Doobie, doobie, doobie doo. Boo-doo, boo-doo, bum-ba-dum. So this is kind of working. I don't know. I keep looking over my shoulder, so I've got to stay. I've got to stay this way, so I'm not covering myself up, I suppose. Yeah, that's all. It doesn't matter. Who cares? Who cares? So the wave state then. What's that all about? Korg wave state. Don't know. We got sniffs of this before NAMM, and then it plunged upon us, and it's essentially a reimagining or an evolution of the wave station. Wave station was an impossibly complicated synthesizer back from 19 and had a combination of FM inside and wavetables and that sort of thing. Digital synth. It's kind of, I guess, was the beginnings of things like the M1 workstation and bits and pieces like that with these big multi-layered sounds. But the thing with the wave station, was that it sequenced waves. So on each step of a sequence, essentially, you could create this movement, this change of waveform from one step to another, which is very interesting. And that has now, of course, developed into change of samples or chains of wavetables, chains of all sorts of things. And within the wave state, what I like about it is that they've brought a lot of control to the front, because the wave station didn't have any of that stuff. It was all menu driven, because we liked menus back in those days. We loved it. Lapped up a good menu. God, yes. So nowadays we're not intelligent enough to use menus, so they've had to put everything on the front. But my understanding is that it's still difficult. It's still not really a hands-on intuitive experience. It's the sort of thing that has extraordinary sound and a great deal of potential, but you are going to have to dig down into those menus and work things out. So interesting. But it's funny, I was just reading the Twitter feed earlier, and Richard Devine had posted a few tweets about stuff, and he kind of mentioned every synth going, well, this was awesome, and yeah, this was awesome. Then, the Argon 8, oh, that was awesome. Wave state, oh yeah, flipping heck, that's awesome. What else was there? The Hydrosynth, cool, yeah, that was great. The Super 6, yeah, wow. So he's having a genuinely good time, and everything is awesome. But, we know that. Yeah, it comes across as too menu diving, says Martin. Yeah, maybe. Oh, I've got to speak this way. Got to speak this way, Wyatt. Okay. Love to see the wave state with Roland Jupiter screen sequencer type thingy. Right. I don't know it well enough to be able to know what you mean by all of that. A good preset demo machine, says Ian. Yeah, I know what you mean, mate. I know what you mean. But then some synths are like that. Some synths are machines that you rely upon the sound designers to create the presets, essentially. You take the presets that they're offering you and you do little tweaks and little changes to those, but those are essentially the body of work that comes with that instrument. It's like, you buy a piano and it comes with a piano sound. So you buy the wave state and it comes with, 500 wave state sounds, and maybe that's the way we want to look at it. I mean, obviously, with that used to be the case. I think we used to see certainly digital synths in that way, and software synths have again done a lot of work in making us believe that it's all about the presets. But these days, of course, we like to push outside that. We like to do our own thing, and I think something like the wave state is a little bit of a retro step in that respect, and is going, we have this wonderful sound engine, which is fascinating, and here's a whole bunch of presets that really clever people have worked on, and you should give that a go. And maybe that's the beauty of that particular synth. Maybe it is. Whereas something like the Argon 8 or the Hydrosynth is simpler, the sound's not quite so layered, but you're going to have more of an input onto those the actual sounds that it's making. It's going to sort of reflect a more of a unique character and personality. That's what I think. So the wave state to me is more like a JV 1080, which is always my standard box of sounds that I refer back to. Something of that nature, more of a workstation synth. But then in terms of usability, then actually if you're a working studio, if you're somebody who's writing music for cash, you just want a whole load of good sounds. You don't want to have to spend your time creating your own sounds. That's what us weirdos and musos do, because we like doing that sort of thing for fun. That's not what necessarily the pros are going to be wanting to do. Feeling like digital is making a resurgence? I don't know. I think that, certainly, I fully believe that the analog digital divide has been immensely blurred and brilliantly so. It's about flipping time. We're no longer having to fight and argue over digital versus analog. People still do, but then people will fight over anything if you give them an inch. But a lot of product comes which is hybrid. A lot of stuff comes along which is digital control over analog stuff, or some of it's an analog signal chain with a digital this, that and the other. And it really doesn't matter. It kind of nowadays, I believe, comes down to the usability and the sound of what it is you're actually doing. So, a lot of the stuff in here is digital, but sitting very much in an analog environment and with an analog front end. Or it may be digital, who knows. But what I mean is it doesn't matter so much anymore. So when people talk about there being a resurgence of digital, I think it's just a slight relaxation in the fact that everything doesn't have to be analog to be good. Everything doesn't have to be analog to sell either. We don't actually mind. If something, talk about generally speaking in the community of synthesizer users, if something sounds all right, it doesn't matter whether it's digital or analog. If your filter sounds great and it's digital, great. If it sounds great and it's analog, great. Just, it just depends from product to product. So I don't think we're suddenly flipping into digital. I think we're allowing all of these things to happen in a very postmodern way, in a very, we can hold both of these things up and go, yeah, I like this and I like this, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be in conflict with each other. They can work perfectly well with each other. And that also somehow couples in with the way that MIDI 2.0 is making MIDI more analog. By that I mean the resolution is increasing and the intelligence of it is increasing, because MIDI is incredibly stupid. It's control voltage, even though it has nothing it has only had one thing going on, just seems to be inherently more intelligent than MIDI has ever been. But now with MIDI 2.0, it's evolving digitally far enough to become more analog-like. Does that make sense? Wow, I'm on fire tonight. I'm just going to go a tiny bit. Cool, wow, there's 160 people here. Cool, blimey, I better say something. Hang on. So, hi, yes, hi, everybody, welcome. We're talking about, at the moment, we're talking about the wave state. But I think we perhaps need to move on, because if we're not careful, we'll end up doing the same thing over and over again. I'm just going to leave, if I leave the corner on with the thing on, is that a problem? It seems a little bit in the way. Maybe I can make it smaller, but I just don't know if I can be bothered at this point. Is that bothering anybody? Tell me in the comments if it's bothering people. If it's all right to leave it there, then I'll just leave it up and I'll keep finding stuff. So I need to find the next thing, which is, we briefly talk about the SV2, because that is something, before we come on to the MS-20, which is obviously the next thing to talk about. But this thing here, no, not that one, that one. Oh, hang on, a bit further. That's the fella, this one. Now, I've wanted an SV1 ever since I first saw it. I thought that is a piano. I mean, gee whiz. Because I'd like to have an electric piano, a proper, good sounding, decent feel electric piano. A Rhodes suitcase or something of that nature. And then the SV1, but I don't want to have a really old, heavy machine that needs servicing and messing about with. So when the SV1 came along, I thought, well, it's a beautiful thing, something that's beautiful, and it's an instrument. And it's got a fabulous sound to it. It's got a bit of tube in it, analog. It's got all the stuff on the front panel. Fantastic. But I could never afford one. And I've sat there with it in a basket on various online shops quite a few times going, no, I can't. I can't do it. And then I got to buy the stand as well, haven't you? Oh, and then you need to help get some speakers. How are we going to listen to it? SV2 comes along, doubles a whole load of things. It's not necessarily the greatest picture. Don't really matter. But it's just a beautiful thing, the SV2S, because it has these speakers inside, and that means I can stick it in the where, I don't know, where is it? The kitchen, where we hang out in the house. Stick it in the house, and it will be a gorgeous thing that will sit there, and you can play it, and it's got speakers. You don't need to have to plug your headphones in. Fantastic. But obviously I'd need two, so I need one in here as well. It'd just be a nice thing to play, a nice thing to have. So I think that's a beautiful thing that they've done with that. I'm so glad that they did it again. It's a shame that it's not orange or something. I really like the red one that they did, but I'm quite taken with the white, I have to say. But again, I can't afford it, so I'll just sit looking at it. But that'll do. Gorgeous. What a lovely thing. Right, let's go past that. And what were we going to look at? What was I going to... Yeah, was it the MS? Did I say? Anyway, let's have a look at this. Do I have any more pictures of a single one? Yeah, that'll do. That one. The MS-20, the Korg MS-20 FS, full size MS-20, because they've released a mini one years ago. Everyone loved the mini one. Had a lot of good times with that. I've seen it at various synth meets and had a play on it. It's a fierce little thing. Don't know what I'm doing, but cool. Wow, that's making a harsh sound. That's it cuts straight in. Whatever else is playing, you've got like 14 other synths playing along, bubbling along, bouncing about. And the MS-20 comes in, whack! Yeah, interesting. And then, of course, there was the kit version where you could build the full-size one, but you had to build the bugger yourself. And I know quite a few people have done that also. With this one, it's pre-built, it's there, it's all ready to go straight out of the box, and it works. And they're in different colours, some fantastic blue I really liked, like the green as well, I suppose. Yeah, fan-flipping-tastic. But, of course, Behringer has their K2. They've just released the MS-20 in their Eurorack Model D format for, of course, a lot less money, no doubt. Although, do we know what the prices are on these ones yet? I'm not entirely sure. But we are, again, in this situation where Korg is going, well, screw it. We're going to produce something that's authentic, that models the exact everything that it models. It's supposed to be everything it's supposed to be. We're not going to stick a sequencer in it. We're not going to do anything, crazy. We're just going to do the machine because it's our machine, and we're going to do it. We're going to do it right. Yeah, we'll stick MIDI in, that kind of thing, and we'll stick all versions of the filter in. But otherwise, it's the fella. So there you are. I mean, I don't know. Does this lead us at some point this evening having the conversation about, well, what's best? Does it matter? Is it sound? Is it the company behind it? Is it authenticity? At what point do you start feeling about the way the company operates? What the hell do we know about any of that? Does it ultimately come down to price? What does it come down to? Why do we feel? I don't know. How do we feel about these things? Do we feel about them differently? Why do we feel Korg is more authentic somehow? Or don't we? I don't know. I don't know. I just love the fact that all these things exist. Isn't that amazing? So anybody down here has got anything? Okay, so can anyone explain to me out there the difference between hertz per octave and volts per octave? I mean, hertz, volts. You know, what's the difference? What does exactly that mean? I mean, obviously, I'm going to have to look that up at some point in order to get that into my head, because I have read it a few times and I just never remember. But evidently, there's something about the MS-20, the way that it works, that the patching in it, the modular nature of it, is all in hertz as opposed to in volts. Or is it? Does that sound right? I don't know. Essentially, it's not directly Eurorack compatible. Again, I'm not entirely sure what that means either. So anyone can enlighten us in the comments. That would be great. Simply, I don't want a big long page of stuff. I just want to know very quickly what actually is the issue with running the MS-20 with Eurorack. Because as I understand it, the K2, the Behringer version, is also volts per octave. So even though they've done it in a Eurorack format, they've stayed true to the original design, making it not very Eurorack friendly, which doesn't make any sense. But there's a few things that Behringer are doing at the moment that don't necessarily make any sense. We'll come to that. We'll come to that. Okay, well, you're doing your usual talking amongst your sales business, which is fine. So I'm just going to crack on until something catches my attention. Yeah, lots of stuff. Yeah, there's lots of that as well. Hertz is a readout. Voltage current. What does that mean? Hertz is a frequency, volts is 1 volt per octave. Yeah, I understand that Hertz measures is a measurement of frequency, but what does that mean in reality? I want to know, if I've got an MS-20 sitting here on my Eurorack, what is the problem? What is the problem? Is it because if I'm sending a sequence from here in 1 volts per octave, it's not playing the right notes? Is that as simple as it is? And does that then pertain to everything else? But then not all the things have to be 1 volt per octave. It can be 5 volts per LFO. What's it? If you see what I mean. No, never understood it either. Great. Good. Right. Well, as long as none of us know, then that's fine. We can just all sort of muddle on and pretend that we're talking about the same thing, yeah? That's great. Okay, so is that all the Korg stuff? Kind of more or less. People keep mentioning the sequential, because that was the other thing that came up. So let's talk about that for a minute, just to crack on through. No point standing still. You're already moved on in the chat as it is. And somebody said there's no Circuit Pro. Yeah, there's nothing for Novation, was there? Nothing at all. Were they even there? So the Hybrid Pro 3. See, this is interesting because I was the one who, I was a naughty boy that leaked this. Because, well, it turned up, didn't it? It turned up on some website somewhere that no one had ever heard of, and all the detail was on there. No, it wasn't. It was on Gear for Music. Well, originally it was on Gear for Music, and they're very, very embarrassed about it. That it turned up on there for about 5 minutes, and I was looking at it, the information came up, I grabbed a picture, and then boom, it all gone. So I had nothing to go on except this one picture. But then another place, American Music or something or other, then stuck the whole lot up, and it had all the information from there. So I stuck this up, and it got a lot of traffic, and I said stupid things like, "Oh, quite, it's a bit expensive, isn't it?" Which of course it isn't. I mean, it is and it isn't, but it's weird because this is this mindset that I've got into now, because I'm used to quality synthesizers, I mean monosynths in particular, coming out for under 500 quid, under 300 quid, and so when something like this comes out for a few grand, it's like, oh, cool, wow, that's like old money. But of course it isn't, because there's plenty of stuff that's more expensive than that. Plenty of stuff, you know, the Mini Moog reissue, for instance, or the Analog Solutions Vostok. Well, the Arp 2600, you know, they're all mono synths, and they're thousands of pounds. So for Sequential to release the Pro 3, which is also a couple of £1,000s, that's actually not so crazy. I mean, obviously, you know, compared to Behringer releasing the Pro 1, yeah, okay, it's 10 times the price, roughly. But what was interesting, I think, was listening to and watching the videos with Dave Smith from Sequential, and hearing him talk about it and explain what it was that went into it and what the thinking is and how things work, none of which I can remember now. So it's a synth with, it's a hybrid in that it's got a wavetable. So essentially you've got a couple of oscillators, regular oscillators, analog oscillators, and then a wavetable oscillator as well, I think, if that was the thing. Lots of different sorts of filter things in there, a big sequencer thing, and lots of presets. So it seemed to be a very performable synthesizer, quite exciting. I mean, people who I know who know about synthesizers were quite excited by it and thought it sounded fantastic. So that's quite interesting. It also looked great. I'm really disappointed that it's not just all wooden with the hinged lid. In fact, because there's another version, which is the standard version, which, there we go, looks like that. Which isn't anywhere near as sexy, not by a long chalk. In fact, it looks like something that Access would do. And Access, in my view, don't make sexy looking synths. They make good stuff. It just doesn't look as fabulous as the wooden one does, you know. I mean, that's the one. And of course, does it look like the Poly D? Yeah, because the Poly D looks like other stuff. You know, it looks like a kind of a classic synthesizer that you could really get your teeth into. So, yeah, not that. Definitely that. No, not that. That one. We're paying a lot more for the wood, man. So yeah, that's the Pro 3. What are we up to now? Yeah, it's a bit like the XD. Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, it is. It's very much like the Minilog XD, actually, but done... I mean, I guess if you're buying a sequential synth, you are buying into... Is it a lifestyle? I mean, it's something more like Moog. I mean, Moog have got a whole vibe going on where, you know, it's full of beautiful people and bohemian things and huge studios that have internal glass houses of plants growing and a waterfall flowing through, you know, grand pianos and stuff. You know, that's the whole Moog thing. Sequential, not quite so much. Sequential always felt like the harder working cousin of Moog. You know, it's like you would take sequential stuff to the gig, it will get beaten up and broken up and but would play hard and that kind of thing. It just had a harder edge to it than Moog ever did. Moog was always sitting in the studio with his feet up going, oh wow, man. Whereas sequential was like, it's going to be... But at least that was my view on it. So let's get rid of that for a minute, just why it's got nothing on it. Oh my goodness, it's all gone horribly wrong. Okay, did that work? I don't know. Oh yes, okay. Right. Accurate Beats, good to see you, man. I hope you're doing all right. Good to see you. Thanks for dropping by. Are you offering me sex, Johnny? Really? I've got halfway through a beer now. I don't know. Maybe later. Looks like a tempest. Yeah, it does. Technikraktos. Welcome. You're very welcome here for your first time in a live stream. Good to see you. Yeah, I agree. Dave Smith is awesome. He's a lovely bloke. I loved watching him demonstrate his machine. He obviously, you know, knew it inside out and was very passionate about it. And that definitely came across in what he was doing and what he was saying. And that comes across in the instrument. I cannot fault them. Of course, I wish they were cheaper. I wish I owned them. But, you know, what can you do? It's in that league and you can't do anything about that. That's not going to change, I don't think. And it probably shouldn't. It probably shouldn't. Somebody suggesting hertz per volt rather than hertz per octave. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Logarithmic. Yeah, all right, lots of interesting things being thrown in there. I'm just going to have to look it up, aren't I? Simple as that. Simple as that. Feedback control. Yeah. The disting, does it translate between the two? Joy. Joy of joys. Right. I'll have to dig that out. I've got that here somewhere. Oh, it's up here. Look, it's up here. I haven't got it plugged in yet. This is a powerless row. I have to build the power supply, as I mentioned earlier. So, yeah, disting, that's the answer, is it? But I don't have an MS-20 anyway. So, you know, whatever. Dominic asks a pertinent question, or is it impertinent? Does MIDI 2.0 mean we need to replace all our controllers? No, it does not mean that, because MIDI 2.0 is and does largely run on the MIDI 1.0 specification. It nearly all runs on MIDI 1, so you can use a standard DIN plug and run pretty much all of MIDI 2.0. It's just the bi-directional stuff it can't MIDI 1 can't do. Is that right? Oh, I don't know, something it can't do, but nearly all of it can run on regular stuff, and it will all step down to MIDI 1.0. So if you've got a MIDI 1.0 controller, you can use most of it. What all of that means and how that actually works, no one has got a faintest idea, because no one has actually seen it in action. I don't think. It's all just talk, but it's pulling itself together. I was watching a video earlier, actually, that I think Sonic State interviewed a guy from the Bow MIDI translator, and he was talking about MIDI 2.0, and it actually started making some kind of coherent sense. Rather than this big long list of protocols and things that are supposed to be happening, he actually talked about it in a way that kind of, oh right, so what actually happens in MIDI 2.0 is that your computer, well, if you start from a computer point of view rather than 2 bits of gear, because that makes things more difficult, but from your DAW's perspective, you could plug in a MIDI 2.0 compatible synth into your DAW, and your DAW will go, what's up? And your synth will go, yeah, all right, man. And you'll go, what's it all about? And you'll go, yeah, all this stuff. Oh, lovely. And all of the patches will appear. All the mappings are already mapped themselves to things. And you could say, well, look, I've got this MIDI controller over here. I'm going to send you the profile. And it'll go, and it will suddenly map all of that. And it'll go, wow, this is great and groovy. So that's kind of it. That's MIDI 2.0. It's the fact that you no longer are going to have to be MIDI learning and mapping stuff all the time. Your synth and your DAW will just talk to each other, and they'll work it out between them. That's ace, you know. It's one of the sort of things that you kind of imagine already happens. I mean, certainly, again, because of software synthesizers, because that's kind of all there and all done. You've got your patch list and you've got your controllers and everything is there. All the information is present within your DAW. And it really, MIDI 2.0 is sort of expanding that out to all of your hardware. So you're no longer having to faff around trying to work out what channel something's on. It'll all be there telling you all the time. That's great. Plus, there's a whole bunch of resolution and extra stuff as well. But for the main part, it's all that inquiry and response. Yeah, but as I say, most of that apparently will run on MIDI 1, so we don't have to replace all our controllers, I don't think, at least not yet. Over time, no doubt. Volts is power, Hertz is fizzy. Yeah, I heard you, man. That's really made things clearer for me. It has. Pixies, apparently, about different dance moves. Yeah, I think we're now building a coherent picture. Yeah, I think so. Right, what's next? Shall we talk about Behringer? I suppose we should. Okay, so let's do a little search on that. Do we care about the TR6? No, not really. I mean, it'll go great with your TD3. I mean, they're going to sell shed loads of TD3s and RD6s. Fantastic. It's stick them together, everyone can do it. I mean, it's going to be brilliant for open mic, you know, electronic open mic nights and synth meets, because everyone can bring theirs along. A couple of £100, you've got yourself a synth and a drum machine, and you're performing live. You know, you can do your whole set with just a bass line and a drum, you know, rapping over the top, singing over the top, whatever you like. It's going to, hopefully, that's what I'd really like to see, is all these little Behringer boxes are going to completely, hopefully, revolutionise the live situation of electronic music. Anyone could do it. You can be out there busking with a little powered speaker, battery pack, TD3, RD6, sorted. Play along to it. Fantastic. Yeah, I've got no problem with that. I think it's a lot of fun. You know, Volca, Korg Volcas, similar idea, absolutely. But you have, I think, with the Behringer stuff, you've just got that sort, you know, that vintage vibe that perhaps the Volca range didn't really have. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, cool. But it doesn't particularly interest me as such. I mean, I got me 101, I've got me RD8, and that's more than enough for me to be playing with. I don't really need any more, I don't think. So if I can spell Behringer right, Behringer, then I would actually find it over here rather than being an idiot. So System 100 then. System 100. Think about that while I'm trying to find the right page. Here we go. System 100. System 100. Let's stick that up. Let's do a bit of that. So, the Behringer System 100. We knew this was coming. We'd heard about this. We'd seen it. It's been on Modular Grid for months. You know, Uli was all over Gear Sluts talking about what do you want? Well, what do you want for Eurorack? You Eurorack people, what do you want? Which is kind of like asking kids what sort of dessert they want. It's like, I don't know, what can I have? Well, anything you like in the world. Well, I don't know. Ice cream? You know, they don't quite know how to handle this idea of anything you like. So they decided, well, we'll do the System 100. It's a thing, isn't it? I don't know. So this is what we have. We have, as Behringer has gone away and authentically replicated the circuits of the Roland System 100M, which is the kind of suitcase modular version of their modular System 100 stuff, a whole bunch of stuff, a whole bunch of modules. And they've got them. They're going to release them from something $50 to $100, that sort of price range. And you can have the whole lot. So there's 10 or 11 modules for 500, 700 quid maybe, 800 quid. Let's call it £1,000 with the case and the power supply. You've got yourself an authentic Roland System 100M. Wow. That's quite a thing. So yeah, impressive. What wasn't impressive was the demo, I didn't think. Excuse me. I mean, you had your man over in Bannerheim. Hilarious. It's so funny. Bannerheim. But I was quite tickled by that. But yeah, they had the man doing his thing. And, you know, it's a slightly older guy. So obviously he has more authority. I'm sorry, I should know his name. I mean, because there's three Behringer people at the moment. There's the older guy, the serious guy. There's the woman who's fantastic and fun and likes dressing up as a bumblebee, that kind of thing. And then there's Patrick, who I've met Patrick, who he's all right. He's a geezer, you know, ducking and diving, that kind of thing. So these are these three personalities that Behringer is pushing at us. So when they want to put authority in there, they put the old geezer in. Older geezer, not an old geezer. He's a slightly older, more sensible, accented gentleman. Somebody will tell me who he is. He's probably really important. So tell me who he is. Anyway, so he came along. He was the guy who showed us the Eurorack case a few weeks ago that we got quite excited about. And he introduced us to the System 100. And all the modules are there exactly as they're supposed to be, exactly as Roland produced them in these little 60 quid, 70 quid modules. What an extraordinary thing. What an amazing thing. How do you all feel about that? Not to digress, there's the riddle of steel. But what do you think about a Hackintosh? Oh, really? Been experimenting with an old MacBook Pro. It's just, honestly, Hackintosh, it's not worth the bother. Why bother? I mean, okay, you're going to save yourself a bunch of money and run Mac OS on a more expensive, on a cheaper machine that's more powerful than you can get on a Mac. Yeah, that's fine. But what software is it that you want to run that has to be Mac OS? Because you're introducing such a level of complexity to your system that you need to be knowing exactly what you're doing in order to maintain it and to keep it all together and to build it in the first place. Because it's not easy in the slightest. And there's all sorts of hiccups that you might go through. So, you know, if you're running Pro Tools, run Pro Tools on Windows. It makes no odds. If you run, only if it's Logic, ultimately, is that a good idea. But yes, it is too much of a digression at this point. So I'm just going to push that to the side. Thank you. And why buy the Behringer System 100 when you can build the Frequency Central System X for less than half the price? Can you really? Really? That's interesting. Maybe, but then you've still got to build the thing, haven't you? All right, so let me jump into this thing because you know, it pulls certain things out of me. I mean, one, I'm not an aficionado of ancient analog vintage synthesizers. So for me, System 100, you know, it doesn't pull on heartstrings that it does for many people. So for lots of people, that's a classic piece of electronic music history that they want to own, and this is an opportunity to do that. That's great. That's one section of the market sorted out. That's fantastic. But that's not me. I don't have that nostalgic feeling for these particular things. I don't know anything about them from that respect. I mean, obviously I've played with plug-in versions. And I've seen them at shows and bits and pieces. You know, the real thing, had to play with them. You know, struggled to get sound out. You know, all the usual kind of things. But what I find, what I feel about the System 100, and with the other ones as well, and with the Moog Modular modules they've also released, is that it's a slightly weird choice. Let me try to explain this. It's a great choice for people who are after an authentic version, reproduced version of that. Great, as I say, that market, fine, that lot. But what this does, because of the price of these modules and the availability of them, is that a whole load of people are going to be going, this is my chance. This is my chance to get into modular, because I could actually probably afford it. You know, I could buy a handful of these modules for a few £100, and I could be having like a proper modular time. And that's great. I mean, I am absolutely all for lowering the bar to entry so that more people can get in. The problem is it a problem? I don't know. The thing that keeps bouncing around in my head is that these are not simple modules. They are not, because Eurorack has evolved. Eurorack has grown. It's changed. It's become better. The nostalgic look back to authenticity is fine, but we have learnt stuff in the last 30, 40 years. We have. And the stuff that we've learnt are in things like interface design, the labelling of stuff, standardization. I mean, we've already talked about the problem with Hertz per volt as opposed to volts per octave with the Ms-20. This is another one of those things. And when we look at the System 100, the modules are familiar from Eurorack, but they're also different. You've got different things going on, hard things going on. You've got a lot of things in some of the modules that, you know, all these features kind of stuck together. I mean, if I was to go to the list of modules, because I'm not explaining myself very well at all. Yeah. I don't know that I am going to explain this very well. But to build your first modular system, if you're moving into Eurorack, then you're going to be wanting things relatively simple. You're going to want an oscillator and a filter and a VCA and an envelope. And those things exist in the System 100, but they're kind of bound up in other things. It's not straightforward. So you're going to want, you know, the 112 dual oscillator. That's fine. That seems to be all right. You've got a dual filter. Yeah, okay, three 3 channels per filter, right? Okay, sorting that out. You've then got a dual envelope, so it's all working together so far, but then it has an ADSR built in with an LFO that can be triggered and phase synced. Is that what we want? I don't know. So all I'm trying to get at is that they are not straightforward. Well, they are, but they're not straightforward modules. It's just it's a bunch of modules which are quite dated. For sound, that's fine, but dated in as far as the interface goes, dated in as far as the labeling and the way that it's compatible and chains up and the way the workflow works. I think there are easier ways into Eurorack, but of course this is going to be the cheapest way into Eurorack. And there's a lot more interesting stuff out there. There's a lot more interesting filters. There's a lot more interesting things you can do with envelopes and with LFOs. There's a lot more interesting things you can do with control voltage and the way those things flow and work. No, I'm really not explaining it. To the point that sitting down with a System 100M, for instance, I'm not entirely sure how to make it work. And for someone like myself, who's not, I'm not steeped in a tradition of Eurorack. I've been doing it for a few years now, but you would have thought that I would have been able to nail it. And I'm not 100% sure that I can. Now, on the other hand, is what we're going to find is there's going to be a whole load of users who are buying this kit and won't know how to use it. They won't know how to put it together because it's going to make my head itch, ache, scratch. And I'm going to have to sit down and really think about it. Now, from my point of view, as a YouTubey trying to help people type person, then I absolutely want to buy this kit, the System 100 in particular, because it's probably going to be more affordable. And there's only 11 modules. So I want to get hold of it so I can then go through it module by module and try to open it up and explain it. Try to learn it myself, absolutely. And then try to explain it, because I think there's going to be so many people out there who are not going to understand how on earth any of this works and how it gets put together and how you start doing that stuff. Who the hell is that? Hang on. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I've not experienced that before. That was exciting. Is that what happens when you get 200 viewers? Is that what happens? That's very exciting. Strange. Thanks for that, weirdo. Right, so what was I saying? Yeah. So, I don't know. So that's my thought on it anyway, is that the System 100 is a great, authentic, old-fashioned thing that has a dated interface, and I don't think is the best or easiest way for people to get into Eurorack. I think it's slightly complicated and over-featured, and I think people are going to struggle with it. However, on the other hand, I'm looking forward to getting hold of it because I would love to learn more about it. I would love to understand it, and I would love to share that and explain it on my channel so that lots of people have a look and get helped. Because I want people to get helped. I don't want to be seeing all this stuff in car boot sales. I want it to be useful to people. But I feel that Behringer is pushing ahead with this philosophy of redoing these old bits and pieces without thinking about, without thinking about the user base, without thinking that there's a better way to do it. I think they're just interested in the replication, which is fine, but they're not thinking any further ahead in how people use it and how they could improve this, how they could offer up products that perhaps do a better service to the community. On the other hand, if there's people who just want the old stuff, then here it is, here's the old stuff, and that is awesome in of itself. I'm not trying to say that it isn't. So let's look at the other one then. Let's look at this fella. Just want to, that's gone all a bit too cool. So yeah, the Moog stuff. Now this we saw when they were doing the Eurorack case. So when they were doing the Eurorack case, they did a video on it a few weeks ago. We saw these Moog modules knocking around. And essentially what they've done is that they've authentically replicated the circuits of all the System 55, Series 55, Series 35 and Model 15 of the Moog Modular, which is awesome. I mean, they look great. I mean, look at them. It looks fantastic. Slightly strange in the smaller Eurorack format, but yeah, they just look great. But just get straight to the but is that I struggle with it in the same way. The authenticness is awesome, and for people who have always wanted a Moog modular, that's fantastic. I mean, the Model 15, the Model 10, those couple of cases knocking around with those things in. I mean, I've seen those in real life, and they are impressive. They are impressive to hear, impressive to look at. In Eurorack, it's going to lose some of that impressiveness, inevitably. But with a bit of luck, if the sound's there, well, it's going to be awesome. And if you're the sort of person who's always wanted one of those, then this is the bomb. It's going to do it. This time around, however, there's like 20 modules. So that's a bit more of an investment if you want the whole lot. And that's a factor, actually, because with the System 100 and with this, you kind of want the whole lot. Because the other thing I'm slightly concerned about, I don't know why I'm worried about these things. Do I stay awake at night worrying over Behringer's choices? I don't know that I do. But anyway, for the purpose of this conversation, what worries me about it is how able you are to take one of these modules and plop it into an existing Eurorack. I'm not sure that you can. Well, of course you can, but I'm not sure how well that works. Because there weren't those sorts of connections available to you when the System 100 and the Moog was about. They were their own systems. Even though they were modular amongst themselves. They weren't really looking to be modular amongst other things, other systems. They were looking really just to be themselves. And so just picking up a couple of modules, is that going to work? I don't know. Probably. I mean, because again, with this, one of the problems that we get, so I actually put all of the images on here. We run into problems with S-Trig and V-Trig because Behringer have authentically replicated the Moog modular right down to the things that nobody wants to use anymore. Because Moog modular had worked on S-Trig as well as V-Trig. What am I talking about? Oh, I don't know. I've only tried to learn this stuff myself a minute ago. V-Trig, right? Voltage triggers. So a V-Trig is when you trigger something in Eurorack, you get a positive voltage. Voltage goes up, it triggers a thing. You know, the wall of volt. If you imagine your waveform, it's my waveform. Waveform comes along, trigger, 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 trigger. It hits this point and it triggers something. That is a V-Trig, a voltage trigger. S-Trigger is kind of the opposite. S-Trigger is when you get nothing. It triggers on ground. So it triggers on zero as opposed to triggers on voltage. You have a voltage and that disappears and that causes a trigger. Something like that. But it also uses a different connector. It uses this weird cinch connector. So S-Trig and V-Trig, you can move from one to the other, but it depends on which way you're going. I can't remember which way around it is. With one of them you can use just some kind of weird adapter cable. With another one you need an actual module to do the conversion. And if you think to yourself, what is he talking about? Exactly. That is exactly my point. What am I talking about? So what you get is you get this wonderfully replicated Moog modular stuff that's going to make you scratch your heads even more. Now, of course, again, we're in a situation where if you're one of the bunch of people who wants an authentic Moog modular experience, then this is it. Fantastic. But because of the pricing, because of the excitement, because of the mass market appeal of Behringer, a whole bunch of people are going to pick this up who again have no clue how to actually wire it together. Because the labeling on these things, it's like dope for labeling, you know. Because, I mean, dope for Eurorack modules are great, but they're not the easiest things to understand and grasp and intuit your way into, because you know, it's very scientific, and that's the approach with this as well. So if you're using something like you've got to use something like the 961 interface to convert from the S trigs into your V trigs. So if you've got something coming from something else from your V trigs into your S trigs and your S trigs out to, oh, for crying out loud, who is this guy and what's his problem? I don't get it. Why is somebody sitting around there doing that? It doesn't make any sense. What? Anyway, so yeah, so those are my concerns, really. That Behringer has chosen these amazing old things that a bunch of people are going to want, which is great. But it's the mass market appeal and the fact that a lot of beginners are going to be jumping on this stuff, and they're going to be scratching their heads, because when the Moog Modular came out, people who bought it were engineers. Engineers bought the stuff, not, you know, interested, enthusiastic musos like ourselves. So I just fear that a lot of people are going to be stumbling, and the whole thing is kind of going to go, oh, like, wow, all this stuff, all these people, everyone joining all these forums, everybody asking all these questions, and then it's all just going to get really angry and annoyed, and the whole thing's going to flop into nothing. And I would have rathered if Behringer had taken the Moog Modular and shaped it into something modern or future looking or easier, just smoothed out the corners, you know, calmed it down, given us something that normal people can work with without having to have a degree in engineering. So that is my feeling on this whole Behringer thing. To summarize, 1, flipping awesome, fantastic. A lot of people are going to be really, really happy about it. Number 2, I think it's more complicated and harder to use choices than people really think. And I think a lot of beginners, myself included, are going to struggle. I don't think I could probably scrape together enough to buy a System 100 to work on those to make videos on it. I don't think I can afford all of the stuff that's available in the Moog thing, because again, I think you need to buy the lot. You need to buy the lot, and that's going to be a bit more of an investment. So I'm not so sure about that. If Behringer were to send it to me, then obviously that would be awesome, and I would endeavour to learn all about it and get stuck in. But as it is, there it is. I mean, that's just my feeling, my first impressions on it, you know, and I think that's, I don't know, I'm just putting that out there. I'll probably try to put that together in some kind of coherent sense when I do my Molten Monthly later in the week. But otherwise, that's kind of my feeling on that. How do you feel about it? How do you feel about it? Is it just plain awesome? Is it awesome, but is it, oh my goodness? How do you feel about that? I'm going to have a bit more beer and just step through the images. I mean, what the heck is a CP3A0 oscillator controller when it's at home? I don't know. The beauty of modular is that you can combine it with any other brand, said Matthew. Well, yes, you can. That is the beauty of modular. But my point was that these original modular systems, when they were built, there weren't really any other brands. You weren't really combining them with other things because other things didn't really exist in that way. Not in the way that Eurorack does. Not in this way, I don't think. You would have had a Moog Modular and you would have only bought Moog Modular. And the modular nature of it is the fact that you can swap modules in and out. Not that you can necessarily swap somebody else's module in. I don't think that was the thinking. Not early on. Not in the time when these things were built. These days, yeah, of course, that's the awesomeness about it. But I don't think that was. And that's why I wonder how well that these Moog modules are going to fit in with the rest of Eurorack. You know, where am I going to drop in a CP3A oscillator controller? I've no idea. What am I going to do with a filter bank? I don't know. I mean, I've got an EQ from music thing. I mean, because a filter bank's just an EQ, yeah? Kinda. And it's a huge, massive thing. So, I don't know. I don't know. So, Hellbound Hillbilly saying I'll probably buy parts of the Moog replica modules and see what I can interface with my existing Eurorack. And if they don't make a converter, then I'll bloody build one. Good on you, mate. Good on you, mate. Researching is half the fun. Sometimes it is. Yeah, I like it. I like researching stuff. I like, what I like doing. The reason why my channel exists is that I like to research something. I like to dig into it, and then I like to present it. That's the way that I learn stuff. Weirdly, I don't learn very well by just looking. If I look. Don't start me on the Dofa joystick. I just look. That's no good. It doesn't stay in my head. Things only stay in my head, well, at least I stay in my head longer if I look, research, and then present it. If I can present it, then at that point I might have actually learnt it. So anyway, that's my thought. Hey, Simon Magpie, nice. Good to see you, man. Look, I'm over 200 people. Have you noticed that? That's just brilliant. This alien design decisions are maybe part of the fascination with the vintage gear. Trying to figure out the MS-20 filter envelope for the first time. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Well, of course, I mean, because Behringer's popularity with the other stuff, this is it. Everyone's sat there now. They've got their Behringer synths and going, wow, these synths are amazing. Because they are. Because playing with synths is amazing. And they're thinking, well, but, modular's so complicated. Eurorack's so expensive. Never going to get into that. And then they think, well, the Behringer 104, one of these fellas I've got here, the Behringer Skiff is only 70 quid. Their power supply is probably going to be 30 quid. So that's 100 quid plus a couple of their modules. Suddenly I'm a modular person. But which modules do you buy from if you were just supposed to choose a couple of modules from the System 100, which ones would you get? Wouldn't you need them all because it works kind of as a unit, as a system? Oh, it's difficult. It's difficult, you see. Do you see what I mean? The whole thing is flipping. It's a minefield. Minefield, I tell you. I don't know. So what about the Dofa joystick? Well, it was just funny, right? Because there was his Instagram picture of Sonic State had discovered it on the night before NAMM, and we're just going twang, twang. This great big thing was wanging about. But the thing with the joystick, for the Dofa joystick, for those who haven't seen it, is that it's a big joystick, like this big. It's like a gear stick on the front of your rack, and you do your XY, but you can also rotate it for Z for 3 parameters, right? Which is a nice idea, interesting idea. Just looks unfortunate, shall I say? Yeah, indeed. Well, why am I talking Behringer when they weren't at NAMM? Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, they were riding on the wave of NAMM coverage. I mean, we had this conversation at Guineas. Do we put NAMM at the front? Do we tag it NAMM? It's like, well, no, because they're not there. I mean, last year at least they were down the road, whereas this year they're in a completely different continent. But, Behringer had tagged their own stuff NAMM, and personally I think it's pertinent to what we saw at NAMM. So, what the hey, I can't not talk about it. That would be nuts, craziness. But we'll move on. In a minute, we'll move on. Oh yeah. So would Behringer clone Buchla stuff? I suppose they could. I mean, if they really want to weird people out, that's the way to do it. I mean, once they've pissed off everybody who doesn't understand how to use a System 100, and then really mess with the minds of people who think Moog Modular is easy to use, then they can introduce Buchla stuff, and just the whole place will fall apart. Except for that small bunch of people who want that authentic vintage experience, of course, and they will always be there. But my feeling on that is that that's a boutique audience. That's why Eurorack companies exist at the moment, that they're able to build enough stuff, like 100 modules for those 100 people who want that authentic experience. And that works in a small business, direct to customer relationship. That works beautifully. Mass market, I don't think that works. I don't think that works. Oh, I'm sure though. I'm sure they will. I'm sure they could pop up all over the place. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm not expecting anyone to take my advice. I'm not expecting anyone to hear my words and go, "Oh yeah, he's right. Yeah, I shouldn't buy it. I shouldn't buy it because it's going to be too difficult for me." No, that's not what I mean. I'm just expressing my thoughts on it. Of course, people are going to buy it, and absolutely they should, because it's a fantastically cheap way into Eurorack. Absolutely. It's just be prepared for it to be a bit of a steep learning curve. And I'll do my best to help with that. If I'm able to, if I'm able to get hold of the stuff, I'll do my best. I mean, I will invest in it. I have lovely people on Patreon who give me a couple of quid, and I will use that money to buy into the System 100 thing, because I think that's worth pursuing. I think that would be interesting. And I don't expect Behringer to send me the stuff, because that's not really what they do. Well, they do send stuff out, but I'm not necessarily on that list of awesomeness. So, but I'm prepared to invest and put in the work. That's I find that rewarding, and so I do that myself. So were you there, Simon? I didn't know that you were there. Was it one long beer party? Well, I spoke about this a bit on Tuesday. I did NAMM from 98 to... No, from 99 to 2004, 2005, something like that. I did those bad years, back in the bad days, right? Back in the bad days when Bob Moog, he had a little trestle table that was quaking under the weight of a Voyager and a few Mooga Fuga pedals. It was back when Native Instruments were hardly anything. I remember when Melodyne turned up. I remember Spectrasonics turning up for the first time. That kind of thing. And it was exhausting. An exhausting thing. But I smoked then. So actually, if you're a smoker, you take regular breaks. You step outside, the noise, it all calms down, and you can chill a bit. And I think without smoking, it must be an enormously intense experience. The only problem that you had was that you couldn't smoke and drink at the same time. It's like... But of course, that's the same everywhere now. But at the time, it just seemed like such a liberty, or such an oppressive society, that I could not stand in the bar with my drink and smoke, and I couldn't stand outside with my drink and smoke. Couldn't smoke inside, couldn't drink outside. Who are these people? But anyway, so yeah, it was mostly a lot of shouting, a lot of noise, really, really tired feet, no decent food, couldn't find food anywhere that you could eat, or enormous queues. But the first time I went, we stayed in a hotel on Hollywood Boulevard, of all places, because the first NAMM I went to, it was at the LA Convention Center. It wasn't even in Anaheim. It was in the middle of LA. So we stayed on Hollywood Boulevard, which is kind of a bit of a piss alley, really. What a nightmare. It's all just full of police sirens and prostitutes and drug dealers. And this was, you've got the Chinese theatre there, and you've got all the Walk of Fame and stuff. You're thinking, this is really, really cool. And then, no, it isn't. I feel really scared. So, that was my first NAMM experience. It got better after that, because we stayed in the Anaheim Hilton Hotel opposite the convention center. So you never actually went outside that ecosystem. You just spent the whole time either in the show or in the hotel, and backwards and forwards. And that was a more coherent experience, I think. But yeah, there's some good parties to be had, certainly, and some bad ones as well. I went to some bad ones. You sat around going, well, the beer's free at least. Don't know what's happening. But yeah, NAMM is an extraordinary, nutty, crazy, overworked, busy, noisy, fun, lots of people, crazy people. You come away feeling really sick and horrible. It's a whole mixture of things all in one place. Fantastic guitars, fantastic gear. Anyway, Talking nonsense now. Yeah, oh, he went to AES. Oh, AES is like that's the posh one. That's the one where people know what they're talking about. At NAMM, it's great. You just talk you talk crap because everyone's talking crap. Whereas at AES, they go, oh well, you know, here's the specifications here on the book, and I can talk to you all about that and how you can hear the quality of the audio, can't you? Yes, because I've compared it with this and this. So AES is a very different show, I think. Although I've never been, so I can't really comment. But that's the impression that I get. You had a hot tub party. Where did you have a hot tub party? I don't think those sort of things were allowed anymore. I remember back in the day, people like Dean Markley and the guitar manufacturers, they used to have booths with babes in the booths that you could visit, and depending on obviously how much product you bought would depend on what sort of bonuses one would get. So I hear. I mean, that's NAMM legend. I never actually saw any of that sort of thing going on. Feet only? Oh, okay. You had Mark Doty in there with Gaz. That sounds like a riot. Oh, that would have been awesome. Well, I wish I went now, just for that bit. Oh. What about the guitar gear? Now, who gives a monkeys about the guitar gear? Just a bunch of guitars, isn't it? It's all the same stuff. I mean, there's reams and reams and reams of it. What I want to talk about is the different symbols that were there. Now, that's interesting. All right, so let's move on. What we'll do, we'll just have a look. I'll scout through what other stuff was, things of interest then. Things of interest. Let's rewind, and I'm going to go through some relatively quickly. Oh yeah, oh, there's that, and there's that. Oh yeah, and that. So all right, so let me turn my little thing back on like that. I'll just use that as a bit of a guide. Yeah, I'll scroll through it together, and people shout stop, 2 minutes after I've gone past it because of the lag. Anyway, Pittsburgh Modular. Yes, Pittsburgh Modular, my favourite people. I'm having to send my live forms back, my voltage lab, because the analog delays has stopped working, which is a real shame, a massive shame, because I was just starting to crack the surface of the whole voltage lab thing, and then it stopped working. I'm having to send it back. Oh, it's such a drag. So that's what this hole is. I've got a massive hole here where that was, and that's going back. But they had at the show, they had their cascading delay network, which I wrongly thought was 4 analog delays put together, but it's not actually. It's digital delays, but they're using those chips from a karaoke machine or something, which sound as analog as you could possibly get while still being digital. And the reason for it, because if you stick 4 analog delays together, it just ends up a complete mush because of the noise floor. Whereas the digital ones were cleaner, and they're able to put 4 together and cascade them, and they sound great. And you can do all sorts of interesting modulation with them. You can have them in series or parallel, or this one. Great. Lovely stuff. Pittsburgh, I'm kind of having a bit of a love affair with Pittsburgh at the moment. I didn't used to. When I started in this sort of modular game, Pittsburgh's product looked old-fashioned. It had this kind of, I don't know, like old-fashioned medical vibe about it. I didn't like the colouring, the aesthetic particularly, and it's just like, I don't know, it just didn't appeal on enough levels, Good quality stuff, I understood it'd be good quality, but it never really grabbed me. Whereas now, with the new look, the whole voltage lab thing, the weirdness of that really has appealed to me, and I'm kind of hooked into it now. And I'm now going, oh wow, look at all this other stuff they do. And they've now rebranded their SV1, the Lifeforms. Oh, there's one that's here. The SV1. Yes, they've refreshed that, so that it now no longer looks like a piece of medical equipment, and now looks like a flipping awesome bit of modular. So that's great. Yeah, I really liked all of that stuff. I'm really enjoying the people there at Pittsburgh. I'd like to go and visit. I'd like to do more on their stuff, very much. But we shall see. I need to get over this hump with the life forms, that going down, and then see what happens down the line with that. So, yeah, cool. Did anybody else see that? Did we have a good time with that? Waves. Waves have got this thing here, the Ovox voice synthesizers. I mean, they had a very fruity video. The guy in the video was just going for it, man, and that's what you need for this kind of thing. But it's silly voices and robot noises. It's just not my scene. I mean, I can get funky. I can get funky, just not that funky for me. So that was good. Hack and Audio had a slimmer version of their Continuum fingerboards, which are still more expensive than I could possibly imagine. It's just a whole other world. A whole other world of things. Did everyone see my Microfreak 2.0 firmware update video? If not, you should go and see it because it's awesome. I was pretty brilliant in that, although I didn't do anything near as good or as exciting as Oscillator Sync did. But I think I was up there with the interesting things. I gave that a go. I rushed this video out because Arturia said, like last week, do you want to do a video on the new firmware? Here's the beta, give it a go. So I thought, sod it, yeah, well, I'll get on that wave. Because you know how Arturia likes to do these big releases of waves, how everybody's releasing a video about the same product all at the same time. But what I thought was interesting is that the OS 2.0 videos were all done by tier 2 people. Like myself, not tier 1s. It wasn't Bo Beats. It wasn't Luke Pop. It was people like me and Oscillator Sync, who's awesome, and Cat TV and stuff like that. So it was all us lot who got to do the OS 2, which I thought that just tickled me. I thought that was quite funny because it was obviously beneath the tier 1 guys. Yeah, not interesting enough for them. But it gave us other guys, us little guys, an opportunity to shine a little bit with a bit of the Arturia buzz. So that was nice. Damn it, I've drunk all my beer. Erica Synths bassline. Yes, now that's a thing. Very interesting. That should come out considering the Behringer, of course, because this is great. This allays a lot of my fears, I think. Some of the fear, the cloud of Behringer, is that it will put other people off. It will stop other people making awesome stuff, which would be a shame. If it shuts other people down, that's just awful. And it doesn't appear to. I mean, I've seen a lot of posts actually on Instagram from DinSync, because they obviously have a 606 and a 303 clones. And for them, it's important to remind everybody that they're still there and they're still going for it. And I think that's great. And I like the fact that Erica Synths have thought, we're going to release a baseline, a 303 style synth, but it's going to be an Erica Synths one. So it's fat and mean and fierce and fruity. It's got these fantastic Bakelite knobs on the front. It's got a sequencer which seems like easy to use, which is great. So very much enjoyed that. I've no idea whether they're actually at the show or not, but the video on the baseline I thought was brilliant. So awesome. Well done, America Synths. Just get stuck in there, man. Just got to get stuck in there because it's, good stuff. There's no reason why we all can't coexist because even though Behringer, but it's catering to a mass market that wasn't there anyway. They weren't your customers anyway. I don't think that many people are going to be going, oh, I was going to buy Erica Synths, but now I'm going to buy Behringer. I don't think that really happens like that. Whereas what Behringer are doing on the whole, I mean, there's obviously not completely, but on the whole, they're bringing new people in, people who couldn't afford to be in this space. And I think that's brilliant. That's always going to be awesome. And I don't think it necessarily has to poach people from other manufacturers. It doesn't have to do that. It might do. It doesn't have to. I feared that it would, and I don't think it is. I think we're more resilient than that. I think we use our money more intelligently than that, and we make our own choices, and we're not going to be pushed around. So, well, there you go. So I thought that was awesome. Thought this was good that Rossum Electro have dug up a load of our SB1200. Is it 1200s? Yeah, SB1200s, their old EMU sampler, and they've restored a whole bunch of them. So they've stuck in floppy drives or something. They've increased this. They've changed that. They've put a bit of WD-40 in there, got rid of the squeaks. So they've found a bunch of old SB1200s and they've redone them up. And they're selling them out to you good people for about $7,500. So, wow! I mean, obviously they've put a whole load of work into these things, obviously. And that's brilliant. But wow, that's a lot of money for an old sampler drum machine, particularly as Isla Instruments happen to be recreating their own one, calling it the SB2400, and that's going to be like £1,000, 1,500 quid or something. I mean, wow. Wow. So yeah, there's that one. Hydrosynth. Oh yeah, whatever. Hydrosynth. Animal Factory. There wasn't a whole lot of Eurorack there. Not new Eurorack anyway, at least as far as I can see. I mean, there's the Animal Factory, there was Qubit, there was 4MS. I'm struggling now. Was there anything else? The Fractals had an oscillator. Yeah, so interesting. There was much less new Eurorack than there has been previously. There was no Make Noise. You know, Erica synths weren't there other than their baseline thing. There was no Instruo. There was a lot of companies who were there last year didn't seem to do it this year, or at least didn't have new things to show. Noise engineering, yeah, okay. So I'll just come to a few more through this. Just for a non-hardware one, a bit of software from Traction Corporation, Waveform, keep calling it Wavelab. Waveform 11 is around the corner. That looks excellent. Now, I did a review of Waveform, it's called Traction 7, and it's been one of my most popular videos because Traction 7 is now the free version. I did it when it first came out, so that's a few years ago, and it was brilliant. It was brilliant. And I really need to do, I've promised Traction that I will do a new review of their latest DAW, which I started trying to do with version 9. Now we're up to version 11. I will try to do it because it's awesome. Sorry, my light's gone out. And it just takes an awful lot to review a DAW properly. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. And I don't always have that sort of time to devote to it. But if I can, I will try to get around to it. Oh, that's better. Yeah, Verbos Electronics had some modules. They were there. I didn't totally understand what they were saying. Because Verbos Electronics, a very serious Eurorack company, I feel, and they make serious modules that are big and huge and have lots of things to do with harmonics and interesting things that don't naturally flow towards me as things I understand. So, so they produce some modules which are smaller and more compact and simpler, which I appreciate a great deal. I mean, Simon, are you still here? I mean, this is obviously right up your street. The blip blocks. It does not appeal to me whatsoever. But there you go. It's a new one of those. This is quite interesting and is going to be pertinent, I think, again to the whole Behringer Eurorack thing. Is that Nifty Case were there. Nifty Case by Create Audio is this good, cheap little Eurorack case. Comes with a couple of modules and it comes with MIDI in and out and bits and pieces like that. It is good and it's reasonably priced and it's the sort of thing that you could fill up with Behringer modules. So they could be onto a winner with that, and they've just about to release these ears, which these brackets, you can put two of them together, which is a nice idea. Good idea, nice. And that would, I reckon, fit a System 100 in there. Yeah, probably. Could be a good thing. Yeah, Bitwig. Like to do more on Bitwig. In fact, I'd like to do more on everything. That's the thing. I've got a list as long as your arm of things I would like to do more on. It's just I also have to pay the bills and keep the lights on, keep writing, that kind of thing. So my time is tight and limited, and I just have to focus on things that I can focus on and achieve. And it's always when dealing with DAWs is that they take a lot a lot of time. But I keep doing little bits on Bitwig when I can. I use it whenever I can, particularly if I'm trying to put things together with the modular. So I enjoy Bitwig a great deal, and I wish I could spend more time with it. My life was much simpler when I was just working and making videos on things like the Surface. I was just doing the Surface Pro stuff and audio interfaces. You know, those were simpler times. Whereas now I'm dealing with a whole world of synthesizers. Whew, there's a lot to be doing. A lot to be doing. So, let me pause there briefly, just have a look at some of the comments, and I'm missing all the stuff that's going on. So just talking like crazy today. Super Booth, what? Erica will be at Perfect Circuit tomorrow. See what they say. New Eurorack. Is there anything that beats a Yamaha CS80? I don't know. I mean, I'll tell you when I built my Descartes Dream. But I mean, the CS80, I think in some ways the CS80 has become a much bigger synth in folklore than it ever was kind of as itself. I imagine. But we shall see. Ah, the UK is going to leave Eurorack. Yeah, I see what you did there. That's funny. Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, Superbooth is the place that Eurorack happens very much. I mean, I think in at NAMM, there's this place called Alex 4. I'm not entirely sure what that is, but whenever people are talking about the Eurorack stuff, it always seems to be on the Alex 4 booth. So there must be a distributor over in America or some guy called Alex 4 who makes a booth to allow these people to come in from Eurorack, because you know they're not going to be NAMM members, people who build Eurorack modules, and they're not going to be big enough to afford all of the stuff you've got to do to have a NAMM booth. I shouldn't imagine. That's the whole reason that Super Booth exists, because that's what happened at Music Messer. At Music Messer, again, you've got Dofa, you've got all these local European Eurorack makers who couldn't afford to have a booth at Music Messer, and so they got together and created what they called the Super Booth, which was a whole bunch of little manufacturers within this one booth at Music Messer, and that then has spilled out into becoming Super Booth. So yeah, it's tough to get into NAMM if you're a little manufacturer. Yeah, Make Noise had other things to do, apparently. Yeah, we are knackered by it all. What is the page that I'm scrolling through? Oh, okay. In case you didn't know, I write for a website called gearnews.com. And so all of my coverage of every single item is up on there. You can go to the website gearnews.com and tap on synths at the top, and that's all the coverage from the constant coverage. I write, I hope to write somewhere between 1 and 3 articles a day. Normally during the rest of the year, I write for them every day. New stuff, any new stuff that's coming out is on there. It's a great place to follow. It's not just reprints of press releases. I actually write what I think about this thing. Not very much, only 500 words. Here's the product, here's what it does. Oh, I think that's really nice, or not really nice, or what a load of rubbish, or that kind of thing. So it has a personality, it has a flavour to it. It's not just a reprint of a press release. And I will go to great lengths to make sure that there's enough information about things, not just here's a link to the website kind of crap. I want to understand what something is, and then I write about it. So yeah, if you want to know my day-to-day thoughts about what's going on in the industry, then gearnews.com is the place to go. There's also tons of guitar stuff on there, pro audio, all that stuff as well. So that's what this is that I'm going through. So other little things that we saw, the Dayz development platform. That's interesting. Is it? Yes, I think that's interesting. What it is, it's a little Arduino-sized microcomputer that is specifically designed for audio. So it has audio in and out, so it has MIDI in and out, and it's ready to go. And the people behind the Dayz thing have produced a Eurorack module that you can plug it into to prototype stuff and test stuff. They've also got a pedal, they've got a synth, and just a little naked board as well you plug it into. And you can program it like you do an Arduino, or you can use C++, and it's there ready for people to create whatever the heck they like. that's quite interesting. So effects, synths, whatever. People are already doing that. I mean, I have a lot of modules. Some of these modules here have all got teensies on the back, or this one has. I think, it's locked in. And other ones have got Arduinos built in. So these things are already being used within Eurorack, certainly. And I think that kind of simplifies it by having a microprocessor which is designed directly for it. So I think that will be interesting over time. There was a synth from a company called Krotos Audio, called Concept. That was pretty cool. It had this modulation section in the middle. I should be doing this here. There's this modulation section in the middle, which was quite cool. You've got LFOs and envelopes in there, but you've also got an audio input, so you can pump in audio as like a sidechain and have that affect things. So that was quite interesting. So I seem to have come to the top pretty much, other than to talk about the Behringer Arp, but I don't think there's anything to say about that really. The only thing to say is it's going to be interesting how it compares to the Korg one and what the pricing is going to be like. That's all we really care about, really, because if you're after an authentic ARP 2600 experience, then buy the Korg. That's simple. That's a no-brainer. But for the rest of us who are interested in how something like that could work and how we could use it in our own stuff, then there's a potential that there's going to be one from, well, there is going to be one from Behringer that could be awesome. And it could be reasonably priced, more likely reasonably priced. What do we think? I reckon $1,000. I mean, it's got to be DeepMind type pricing, hasn't it? Or has it? I don't know. But you're just purely in the bulk of the machine. That's going to make it more than the usual $299, I should think. It's going to be interesting. I do not know. It's not the sort of thing I have the room for. Not the sort of thing that I would necessarily buy, because I already have a modular system that I'm working out of quite happily, thanks very much. But of course, if someone wants to send me one, I would absolutely enjoy playing with that, undoubtedly. So I've obviously probably missed a load of stuff that we just rewind through, see if there's anything else burning. Is there anything else that anybody else spotted? The Moog Subsequent 25. Yeah, cool little synth. Nice. Liked it. Oh, the Qubit stuff. Yeah. Oh, and that. I'll talk about that in a second. Qubit stuff. Interesting. Well, they're always interesting. Qubit every year seem to come up with a range of completely mysterious, unintelligible, fascinating modules, and they kind of did the same again this time. I mean, last time it was the bloom and the fractal, and you're going, what is it? I don't quite. I mean, he's standing there and he's explaining it, and I still have no clue as to what he's talking about. This time, not quite so much. I mean, you got the Aurora, if I get this round the right way, which I think was a reverb. So yeah, we understand that. Data Blender, which sounded like things were just going wrong. I wasn't quite sure why that was fun. I mean, I guess it's a glitch type machine, but that didn't thrill me particularly. I get enough glitches without having to introduce them with a module. Surface, that was physical modeling, I think. So you can have, yeah, so I've got like my 2 HP what's it, which I've got here. Yeah. So that kind of thing, but it also had marimba and skins as well as strings inside. And then there was Cascade, which I can't remember what that is. Did I say? Oh, it's a ratcheting envelope. Fascinating. Good stuff. I really like the Qubit's approach to stuff. I like its cleanliness, its purity somehow, its digitalness. All of that is good. It's interesting, creative. It's different. It's yeah, got a lot of time for it. And I have a Bloom, which is very exciting, that I haven't spent anywhere near enough time with yet because my rack's been in pieces. But as soon as I get this power supply built, I'm going to be spending a lot more time with it, because I think there's a lot of potential in there. A lot. I like it. I like it a lot. We'll spend more time with it. Liquid Foam by Herbs and Stones. Weird banana jack acid box contraption. What? No, I have no idea what that is. Keystep Pro. Andrew, thank you. Keystep Pro. Yeah, that's something. That's interesting, actually. I mean, I had a BeatStep Pro when I first got my Eurorack. I played with it a bit. Struggled with it an awful lot, and then sold it and thought, sod it, my life's too short to try to work this bugger out. It was like it introduced, it felt like it brought the computer back into the situation. I mean, I was just like, I'd just broken out from the computer. It's going, yeah, I'm free. And I'm running through the fields going, yeah, Eurorack, wow, look, it's all amazing. Oh, it's just so freeing. I just have to touch stuff and I can intuit my way through it. There's no menus. I'm not having to worry about things clashing or breaking or drivers. And they, oh, look, a Beat Step Pro, put that down. And then suddenly, oh, drivers. Oh, no, it's broken. Oh, no, it doesn't work. Oh, the configuration's not right. Oh, it doesn't match with this. Oh, everything's going crazy. Oh, there's a... And it was, you know, it just brought you back down to this whole computerized sense of things just not working, and I could not be doing with it. You know, this, right, this is a sequencer. It's got 12 knobs on it. I turn the knob and makes a note. That's it. That's it. No configuration, no firmware update, no trying to connect it to a computer to sort that out, no trying to work out why that's going faster than something else, because it's got a clock input and I just put a clock in and it works. Brilliant. That's the sort of thing that I enjoy. Beat Step Pro, not so much. I can appreciate absolutely its worth and its power. And the Key Step Pro takes that a whole lot further by giving you 4 channels of stuff. And a drum channel, MIDI and CV, and a keyboard. So it solves a lot of problems in one go. But I don't really want a keyboard here. I'm trying to, rightly or wrongly, avoid the keyboard paradigm when dealing with Eurorack, because I want the machine to speak for itself. That was quite good. Yeah, I want the machine to speak for itself, man. So yeah, I think it's a great device, no doubt. I would wait for the black version personally if I was into that sort of thing. Yeah, great. More of the same. Just not really, wasn't really my thing. But again, if I get hold of one, if somebody sends me one, I will work at it and work it out and make it work for myself. But as it is, it's yeah, that's cool. That's cool. That's cool. Thanks. That's cool. Oh, Frank, you can't imagine using your modular without the Beat Step Pro. Horses for courses, mate. You know, I'm not saying this is how things have to be or should be. You absolutely have your way of doing things. It was just, it became a point of frustration. It was not, it didn't give me joy. It didn't give me joy. It didn't free me. It seemed to chain me down again. And I found that very annoying. There we go. Yeah, once that Dofa joystick, you're right. Yeah. 84 HP of Dofa joysticks to sprung upon. Yeah. We'd be like, I mean, your whole Eurorack experience will turn into this. Twisting and going twang, 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 twisting. That's the sort of thing that Heinbach needs to be doing. Yeah, I'd pay to view that. Yeah. Yeah, I'm all about the Intuit. I am. I'm all about it. So, what have I missed? Expert sleepers. Give them all expert sleepers. It gives me a twitch. Wagyu, I don't know if you're pointing out me contradicting myself. If that's directed at me, that's fine. I do that all the time. Absolutely. I will absolutely hammer on about a point for ages and then go, all right, on to something else and do the complete opposite. It's just, I'm completely able to hold all of these contradicting ideas in the air at the same time and pick them depending on my mood or what I'm doing. So there's no rules, there's no order or linearity to any of this. It's just as it comes. It's just as it comes, and my view changes and I lurch from one thing to another, and I think this is terrible, and then I think it's great, and then I think this is great, and then I think that's terrible. it just ebbs and flows. It just ebbs and flows. So don't come here looking for truth. We come here looking for beauty. Anyway, no, I don't want to hear that. Nick, you've got a problem with your Eloquencer. It drops notes. Isn't it supposed to do that? Isn't that its purpose? Is that it has a certain amount of doing its own thing in it? I think that was my understanding of it anyway. Oh, Fearless, you got the Treadstone. Cool. I would love to follow that up with a review of the Hyde and Strangelove, but I don't have them. You know, Analog Solutions have been great to me. They've given me a generator thing here, the sequencer. Let me pull that into view, which I'm planning to do a lot more with. Now I've got a bit more space sorted out. That's going to live there properly, so I can wire that in all the time. And I have a Treadstone that I've put into a little mini synth I've made over there. Anyway, that's for another time. But yeah, Analog Solutions have been great, and they lent me the Impulse command. I did a review on that, but I haven't had anything out of them since, really, and that's okay. That's cool. They don't need to send me stuff, but it's not something I'm going to be in the market for myself. So I'm not going to be able to review those unless they send them to me. And that's the same for any manufacturer out there, really. You want to send me something, then I'll do a video on it. Usually, there's one exception to that, which I'm embarrassed about, but I'll just bring this in just to talk about that briefly, which is Nectar, right? They sent me this controller keyboard because I did this wonderful deep review on the Native Instruments controller keyboard, and they said, do you want to do one on ours? And I said, yeah, absolutely. And they sent it to me about 3 years ago, I don't know. And it's still sitting over there, and I've only turned it on once. Well, I used it in that big drone and art video that I did. Yes, that was cool. I did get it out of the box once. But I have fully intended to do a proper review on it. Now, they had the Aura Beat Composer pad controller, this thing here, at NAMM, which, that doesn't float my boat. Oh, I know it probably does. I don't know. I've not really looked at it in any depth. But what is interesting is that they have version 2 of Nectarine out. Excuse me. Nectarine is a host platform that runs all of their MIDI controllers, and into which you load plugins. So it's like a VST host. You load your plugins in there. You create your mappings and your layerings and effects plugins and all those sorts of things. Put them together in Nectarine, and it all maps beautifully to your Nectar controller. And it kind of creates this seamless bridge between your controller and your virtual instruments. Brilliant idea. I've only played with it, the version 1, a little bit, but they've now got a new version out that I'd really want to jump on as soon as I can and do something on it with that controller keyboard, because they deserve it, man. Nectar Tech have been really good to me, and they're nice guys, and I really must, follow through on that. So yeah, I'm promising to do that. So any other manufacturers out there who want to send me gear, then do. I do get around to it all eventually, and I'm always very appreciative. And I don't expect to keep gear either. I know some YouTubers do very much, but that's sort of not my vibe, really. I'm quite happy to take something on a loan just to try it out because I'm interested. And if it's interesting, I'll make a video on it. That's the deal. That's the deal for anything, really. So last minute things. The 2 HP thing. I've got a better picture of that. Oh yeah, there's that as well. See, there's more stuff coming up now. What time are we on? See, that's 2 hours. I better start thinking about bringing it to a close. But there was a 2 HP lunchbox. Great little portable case. What a lovely thing. You got like 24 2 HP modules in there with the tiniest, fiddliest little knobs and stuff. I imagine a whole box of those, particularly as it's got quite high sides. It's going to be it's just going to be fiddly. I mean, the 2 HP stuff is great. I love what they do. I love the ethos. I love the idea. We're going to make stuff really, really, really thin, and we are going for it. Whatever it is, we're going to continue with this form factor. And they have. And I've got a trim of theirs, and I've got the pluck, which I think is a sublime module. And that's great. But lots of them together would drive me nuts. Drive me totally nuts. But I love the little lunchbox thing. I think that's brilliant. think that's brilliant. Did anybody see people like Richard Devine making their NTS1? I made mine ages ago. They have now released, or are releasing, a custom panel for it, which essentially allows you to create your own hardware to go over the top of the NewTek NTS1. So you not only can stick your own firmware in with oscillators and effects, but you can stick your own hardware front end on it as well. And this allows access to all the guts inside, and you can completely design an entire instrument based upon it. What a brilliant idea. This is Korg again, you know, thinking beyond the normal things and just going, yeah, let's do this. And that's brilliant. I think that's awesome. Well done. Good job. Good job. That's a non-NAMM thing. I might talk about that later, maybe. No, I'm probably not then. Noise engineering, they also have released a kind of a platform. They've got an oscillator platform and an effects platform. What do I mean by that? I mean that there's, I don't know what I mean by that, but there's some kind of chip, some kind of DSP something that's stuck behind a module, which means that you can add firmwares to it that change the functionality. So they've got an oscillator, which has got a stupid name, not a stupid name, it's got a fabulous name of some kind. And it comes with like 3 waveforms or 3 different oscillators in it, but you can upgrade the firmware to add different oscillators that happen on the same hardware. And they've got the same for an effects box. So they've got a reverb thing at the moment, which then could be multi-effects and different things as well. So that's the interesting side of the digital side of Eurorack, is that although they could make a different module for absolutely everything they think of, they could also make sort of one module and then just release different flavors of firmware for it. And that's a massive advantage of digital Eurorack, I think. So interesting. And anything that noise engineering does is going to be interesting. So that's worth looking into, I think. That was before NAMM, the Twisted Electrons thing. I don't think we actually got to see that anywhere. There's the key step. The wavefolder waver from Bastel, yeah, that looked cool. 4MS ensemble oscillator. I don't know, 16 oscillators. It all sounded a bit of a mess to me. I was expecting something quite beautiful to come out of it, and it sort of sounded a bit strained. I don't know. I'll have to watch more videos on that, I think. The Empress Effects Zoya, which is the Cool Kids box. They've now released a Eurorack version for that, or are releasing. That's very interesting. Kinda. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I think it works better as a box or a pedal by itself, because it's very much it does all sorts of things type box. I don't know necessarily that I want a does all sorts of things box in my Eurorack. I like this to do something and then this to do something. It's like the Disting. Disting can do 1,000 things. I don't really want it to. I mean, it's useful as a utility, but I find it less useful as a creative device, you know, unless it fulfills that one specific function. But something like the Zoya, I don't know, something like that, it has a massive engine of all sorts of effects and synths and modules and bits and pieces. I don't know, I just don't think that sort of thing fits for me, at any rate. I don't know. I mean, I guess if you've got a small system, I don't know. It's one of those things, isn't it? I don't think that everything is suitable in Eurorack, but people keep doing it, and I guess why not? And for some people, that must be awesome. Yeah, modal, their Argon 8, larger thing. Yeah, cool, really good. The Wave 2 from Nord. Yeah. Nord and their massive kind of keyboard synth / piano type things. Yeah, cool. I think performance, again, it's one of those things where the presets are going to be the most important thing, like the wave state we talked about earlier. It seems to be all about the presets. The Fractals Brenso, yeah, don't really know much about that. They make modules that are far too complicated for me. I think that's probably it. Let's just spend 5 minutes in the comments to see if there's any other pearls of wisdom or abuse in there, and then it's probably time to call it a night, I should think. Yeah, spoke about that. Chipmunk says the sequential Pro 3 is $1,600. The Korg Ms-20 is $1,500. Now, does that make sense? What do you mean, does that make sense? In as much as... is that good pricing, bad pricing? I don't know. They seem similar. Ms-20 and the Pro 3, they're both essentially monophonic synths. The Pro 3 can do a couple of notes, can't it, I think? Is that right? In paraphonic mode, whatever that means these days. So yeah, that, I don't know, that if that's the price of the Ms-20, then yeah, why not? It's an authentic replication of something. Of course you can get a £300 version, but that's not the point, is it? It's a different thing. Or is it the same? I don't know. Did I just scroll past the keytar? Yes, I flipping did. I'm not spending any time on that nonsense. You're welcome to it, Frank. You just rock out there, man, in your pants and your keytar. That's fine. I'd say nothing about it. That's fine. I'll enjoy watching you on Instagram. But I'm not going to spend any time on it. Is the Hydrasynth the best? Well, Chipmunk says the Hydrasynth because he says it in capitals. So therefore it must be true. Is the best synth on the market. Maybe. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, good, isn't it? It's a great time to be alive that we can sit there and go, well, there's 3 or 4 different synthesizers. I think this one's best. Oh, I think this one's best. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, maybe. You don't have to like my shirt. I don't mind. I don't mind. You're just about to finish your second hobgoblin. I had one, but I left it in the house. Yeah, but it was like a 6%er job, those hobgoblins, and I would be well blotto by now. I'm already quite blotto, just on my kind of the weakest end of the Dead Pony beer. Oh, jeez. Keytar with a small Eurorack case built in. Oh. Well, no, what you're talking about is... where's me Genki? Yeah, me wavefront. I got here. Yeah. See? Now, I mean, it's not that I'm not into expression, because I am. I like weird interfaces. I do. Just the keytar. I don't know. Because, yeah, I've got something like this, which is the Genki Instruments wave front, where you've got this ring of power. You stick on your finger and you go... that kind of thing. And I've done a little bit on it, and I need to do a lot more. Again, this is all because my Eurorack is now come back together again. I can spend time on it all. I don't know where that time comes from, but at least I'm not having to try to put things back together again before I then have the time to do something. If that makes sense. It's all about the presets t-shirt, yeah. Yeah. It's just with the keytar, you've always got to have a cable attached, aren't you? Always. There's always going to be some kind of cable. And then what you can do for a sustain pedal, you're going to have to drag that around with you. Oh. So. Oh, have I got to the bottom? Good. It's got a bit weird on here. It's got a bit weird. Yeah. So yeah, interesting. There we go. That was NAMM, I think. There's probably lots more to talk about, but that's all I can do for now. During the week, I'll be trying to put together my Molten Music Monthly, which will essentially be all the stuff that came out at NAMM. I'm going to have to narrow it down to about 12 products or so, otherwise it just ends up being far too long, that I think were interesting. I'm going to bring that and put that out there. Will I have a live stream next Sunday night? Probably not. You know, I don't think we need to talk about it again. I think I might skip it until next month, and we'll talk about it after the next one. I'll see though. I mean, just, you know, I'll let you know what I think, and let me know what you think if you'd like to have another one next Sunday night to talk about this whole thing again. See, it doesn't quite sit right, does it? Got to have something interesting, a reason to be here. Otherwise, we're just all wasting each other's time. Well, no, of course we're not, because this is a community, man. This is joining together. This is having fun and hanging out and talking about music. So who knows? Or maybe I'll just do a performance on Sunday. Ooh, I don't know, maybe. Anyway, what was I saying? What was I trying to say? I was trying to bring this to a close. So yeah, lots of interesting things to talk about. That's been great. Thank you very much for joining me in this conversation, which is really mostly just me talking. But the nature of this chat and the comments thing it's sometimes easier if I just sort of run on and then have a look. Anyway, but that's what we've done. So thank you for coming along, for being here, for helping me with this. I had something else that I was going to drop in there that I've now lost because I lost my train of thought. I don't suppose it matters. Pedals are in your shoes. Yeah. So, oh yeah, that's right. I was just going to briefly mention Facebook, because I've been I did something where I opened the floodgates to new friends, which I thought would be nice and groovy and stuff. And what the reality of that is that I get about 20 new friend requests every day, and the vast majority, all they do is when I go, yeah, all right, I then get almost an instant message that says, like my page, like my music, like my thing. And it doesn't feel very friendly. Do you know what I mean? And then when I put up a post about a new thing or a live stream or a thing, I get like 3 likes. And I've now got 2,000 friends. So all these people who are coming to me and saying, like, you know, be my friend, be my friend. I go, yeah, all right. Because I'm open to that kind of thing. They're not really interested. They just want me to like their page. At least that's what it seems. So if you are a recent Facebook friend, and I'm sure there's genuine people out there, and I can definitely say there are people that it's been an absolute delight to connect with on Facebook. That's awesome. But if you've befriended me on Facebook and you know, and do so for reasons that you do want to hang out and, you know, have some kind of connection, then just let me know, because I might have to go through and just take a load of people off, because my Facebook feed now is weird. Very, very weird, and not very safe for work either. And so I'm having to unfollow people quite a lot, because there's either, you know, just political stuff that I'm not interested in, or just content that doesn't really resonate with me, man. So by all means, befriend me on Facebook. I mean, maybe what I should do, maybe I should make a video of going through all of these people's pages just to have a look and commenting on them. Oh, that would be awful, because that would feel like I'm getting at people. That's not cool, man. I don't know about that, but maybe I should sit down and spend time looking at all these things that people have sent me and responding. Maybe that's what should happen. I don't know. Who has the time for all this sort of thing anyway? Anyway, that was just a thought. So, yeah, I mean, sadly, I need Facebook for work, because it's a place I get lots of tip-offs for news, for synth news and bits and pieces. I can't really do without it. So I end up inevitably scrolling through it. I've just got more crap to scroll through than I had previously. You know, rather than friends with their pictures of their children and holidays and stuff, I've now got people's bottoms and weirdness and Russian videos and stuff going on. So, yeah, well, there we go. So, let's draw it to a close then, because I've managed to squeeze another 15 minutes off the end of this. So, cool. Thanks for hanging out. This has been Molten Music Technology. My name is Robin Vincent. I will leave you with a little bit of music over here. I hope you've enjoyed the NAMM show and the coverage and the awesome amount of gear and synthesizers that we have to dwell on. Looking forward to the Behringer stuff. Looking forward to other people's stuff as well. From my point of view, I've got to build a power supply or two for this to get it fully running, which I hope to do tomorrow. Tomorrow is a soldering day. I'm just going to solder tomorrow. I'm not doing anything else, I don't think. So I'm going to try to make myself a power supply. I'll do a bit more on the Descartes Dream. That's my plan for tomorrow. I'm going to thoroughly enjoy it. But once I've got this powered up again, I've got a whole bunch of videos to do on this. I've got videos to do on the building an audio PC. I've got videos to do on the Surface Pro 7. Now that NAMM is slowly past us, my world is opening up again, as I've been so busy from December through to now that my video output's been quite low. but hopefully now my video output will increase, which is great, so I can get back in there with some stuff again. So lots of goodies to come. Do stay with it. Do subscribe. If you feel a bit fruity, then send me a couple of dollars via Patreon. That would be awesome. That's lovely that people do that. It's so appreciated. And that's cool. And keep it up. Stay groovy. Thanks for all the words of encouragement. We always have wonderful conversations on YouTube and in the comments and stuff. I do really well, and other than the little band of 6 or 7 people who thumb down every single video that I do, and the nutcase that we had earlier, what was that? Then you know, it's all generally really positive, and I love the positivity that we feel in these conversations, and that's awesome. That's also another Facebook thing. There's a lot of over in the synth community arguing over these things, which is a shame. It doesn't need to be like that. You know, stuff is good mostly. So cool. See you next time. I will turn this up and spend just a couple of moments just fiddling over here just for fun. And I'll see you next time. And you know, do go and make some tunes. Actually, you know what? I don't really have anything to do. This little patch is just working so well by itself that, you know, why do I really need to change it? It's just really nice. I would like to point out this little bit. You got that? This is this thing from ADAC. ADAC Systems. It's the 104, their VCT networks. It's just a I'm trying to get my head around exactly what it was. It's not anything like what I thought it would be, and they've sent it to me to do a video on, and it's kind of fascinating. I think it is. It's kind of like the inside bit of an analog drum machine.